see. Okay. Welcome everyone to the League of Women Voters meeting. We are really pleased today to have you all join us. And I want to remind you all to please mute your phones. Mute your devices so that we don't have any extraneous noise. And I'm sure there'll be lots of questions on the topic of childcare in Moscow. So when you have questions, please be sure to record those in the chat. And then once Darla has finished giving her presentation, I'm sure she'll entertain questions and we can read those questions from the chat. If that's not available to you, if the chat's not available to you, then we'll call on people afterwards. So I'm happy now to turn over the meeting to Dulcie Kirsten Lark, who will introduce our illustrious speaker. Dulcie, it's all yours.
Thanks so much, Lauren, and thanks to the League for making space in their calendar for this really important topic. And I'm really glad that Darla Amundsen is able to join us today. She is the Idaho Star's lead quality childcare consultant overseeing Region 2 of Idaho Star's Childcare Resource Center. That's a program through the University of Idaho and the center, its Center on Disabilities and Human Development. For the past 24 years, she has supported childcare professionals and programs throughout the area to continually improve early care and educational practices. Darla has a BAS in Child Development, Family Relations from University of Idaho. She has a passion for developing relationships with early childhood programs and staff, supporting and coaching them as they open, maintain, and improve the quality of care provided for children and families in Idaho. So I'm really pleased to introduce Darla to our group. Take it away.
Thank you very much. And I really appreciate you asking me to come and talk about childcare, early care, and education in Moscow. And Lauren, you talked about questions in the chat, and I'm honestly fine throughout this whole process of people jumping in and having questions throughout. I'm okay with that as well. And I am going to forewarn you, I have had the fun, not so fun cold and sinus stuff the last few days. So if my voice stops, I may grab a cough drop or something like that. All right, here's my contact information. Dulcie just introduced me and said a lot of what I do. I'm happy to put this in at the end if anybody does need to get a hold of me. My email, all of our phone calls go through the 211 Idaho Care line. You can call up and just say, I'd like to talk to Darla in the Region 2 office, and they'll connect you to me. Our office is located in Lewiston, but we serve all programs from our region throughout the 5 counties in this area. So we do a lot of traveling and going and visiting. First off, I guess I should have asked, can you guys see my slides? Oh, good. Okay. I'm just going to read this information is kind of a little bit about Idaho Stars and their mission. And we're considered the leading expert from quality child care in Idaho. We empower families and early care and education professionals to make safe, healthy, nurturing, and educational child care their top priority. Our mission is to ensure that Idaho's children, birth through age 12, have access to the highest quality, inclusive care and education that they are able to have. And we do this by supporting early care and education professionals with professional development opportunities to improve quality and business practices, and also equipping families with the tools and resources to help them find a nurturing and safe environment for their children. So it's a big variety of things that we do and supporting everybody throughout this whole state. Just a little bit about what is Idaho Stars, and it is a joint project between the University of Idaho, which is the Center on Disabilities and Human Development in Moscow, and also the Idaho Association for the Education of Young Children. So in Moscow, our training office is located in Moscow in the CDHD building. And they develop all trainings for childcare programs, manage all of our approved trainers across the state. They review transcripts, educational transcripts and approved trainings from individuals across the state. So they get like credit for it in our database to help them with their licensing, their professional development and everything. That's all in Moscow, and I know they do a lot of other things as well. The Idaho Association for the Education of Young Children, their office is actually located in Boise. So when it's a collaboration between both U of I and Idaho AEYC, then they each kind of do different things within those offices, but that support the whole entire program. And in Boise, I don't know if anybody has heard about ICCP, but that is the Idaho Child Care Program. Families can receive ICCP assistance from the Department of Health and Welfare. And then we're helping in getting those child care programs set up as vendors to accept those payments. All of that is processed down in our office in Boise. They help set up the vendors. Any program that is state licensed is in our database, and they're able to house those documents as well. The Boise office has a lot of different projects within their realm that they oversee. Our Steps to Quality program, and that's where programs, childcare programs can actually voluntarily be part of a quality improvement system to help improve the quality of their care and be verified at certain steps. And I'm happy to answer more questions about any of these specific programs if you'd like. They oversee our environmental rating scale assessments that happen for child care programs that are in our Steps to Quality. And then grants and scholarships, the professional development system. They do a huge variety of those types of things that supports the whole state. So we have those two offices, and then there is our 7 regional child care resource centers across the state. And we are one of those, and our office is in Lewiston, like I had said. But all of those resource centers house a big variety of staff. We have lead quality childcare consultants, and that's what I am. I oversee this office here in Lewiston. And then we have quality childcare consultants, childcare health consultants, resource specialists, CDA specialists, as well as professional development specialists. We all do a variety of things to help support and implement supporting programs, starting a program, writing their policy and handbooks, training, classroom business setup, providing on-site. We do a lot of on-site technical assistance. So we go out and visit child care programs, and we always let people know that we are not regulated. We're not the child care licensors, and we're also not the child care health inspectors going out. I would say we get to do the fun stuff with our early childhood programs and support them in many ways. Setting goals, coaching. We have a lending library of materials and resources that programs can set up and check out once a month. And we also provide, very important, the child care referrals for families that are actually looking for care. Any questions on any of that? Is that a lot of information? Okay, I will move on. I looked up the data for Lake Tahoe County, since it was your organization that asked me to talk about childcare. And in Lake Tahoe County, we have on our database 19 early childhood programs. And that could be those programs, when I was looking them up from our database, they're from Moscow, Potlatch, and Julietta. That's where we have programs that are actually on. not all programs are required to be on our database. There's probably a lot more out there. All state licensed childcare programs are on our database, as well as any of our programs that are set up as an ICCP vendor able to accept those payments coming in from health and welfare. Other programs can be on it. We just keep their information up to date, whether they're licensed or meet the licensing requirements. But those programs could include large and small centers, preschool only programs, after school, could be Head Start, home-based programs such as family and group providers, as well as relative providers that are set up to receive the assistance. Any programs can request and receive any of our services. For our Steps to Quality programs, and in Latah County, there are 8 Steps to Quality programs, and probably the most in any of our other counties in our region. I must say, I've always been impressed with the amount of time I've been here with our child care programs that are in the Moscow area. And I think that has a lot to do with the licensing requirements in Moscow compared to other areas as well. But a lot of them are working really hard to do a lot of great things. And we have 13 of those 19 programs set up as ICCP vendors. Now, the requirement for programs to be an ICCP vendor, we are always actively encouraging programs to get set up as a vendor so all children have access to the high quality childcare. Any questions on any of that?
Darla, could you speak maybe a little bit to just, I know that you don't have it broken down here, but maybe off the top of your head, what you can remember for the programs in Moscow, sort of the range of sizes of the programs, like the number of children that they can care for? When
I was talking about, there's one program that is just an individual as a relative set up as an ICCP vendor. So they're not open to anybody else. And I think they only provide care for 1 or 2 of their relatives. I don't think we have any family home or family providers, and they are typically able to care for up to 6. Licensed group programs are for up to 12. I do believe that Moscow only has 1 of those. 2. One of them is not on our database. So that I do know about them. Otherwise, they're small centers and large centers. So in all reality, anywhere from 6 children up to, I'm gonna bet that U of I Children's Center is the largest. And I just heard from them yesterday that they have 97 children enrolled in there. Well, that's between U of I Children's Center and the lab, because they oversee the lab as well on campus. So it is a range. Some of them are smaller and only have 20 to 30 children, and others have grown up since, are bigger than that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All programs can receive and request and receive our services, regardless of whether they're on our database or they may not work with us regularly, but anybody can reach out and say, hey, we would like some support in this. But it's our Steps to Quality programs, especially, and our ICCP programs that are really requesting the majority of our support. Many of them, we are in their programs or speaking with either staff or directors within their programs, sometimes on a weekly basis, sometimes on a monthly basis, and others we may not talk to for a while if they don't need as much support. Okay. So I'm gonna just ask, how many of you have needed to use childcare or search for childcare? And if so, what is your experience?
I don't know, Darla, if you can see the comment that just came in the chat.
Nope. My chat must be hidden.
Okay, so Lily just commented that as a parent of 2 children, the childcare expense is not cheap as compared to other states, especially in the South. Are there any resources to help the situation?
Resources as far as that are low income can get the Department of Health and Welfare, ICCP assistance. Otherwise, some programs may offer any of their other kind of scholarships or family discounts for 2 or more children. It's a huge issue. The cost of it, but the cost of everybody's expenses are going up tremendously for food, their rent, staffing, everything. And that's one of the things that programs are really struggling with, not having to pass that cost onto the families. But inevitably, it is going to be in many cases. I'll talk a bit about some of the programs that we've had that have helped with that, but they're not all going to be around forever. So I wish I had an answer just to say, sure, this is how we can help. But usually it's Department of Health and Welfare and ICCP.
So I can, just to take a stab at your question here, Darla, I can share my experience, which is I put my unborn child on a waiting list for infant care 4 months before he was born. And he did not get a spot until he was 7 months old. So we were basically on a waiting list for a year. Really grateful that a spot opened up and I happened to have a job that was flexible enough that he could come with me for 6 months to work, which was tremendously helpful and certainly a cost savings for those first 6 months, but also developmentally, the moment we put him in daycare, I could see the growth happening. So beyond just better for me as a employee to have childcare, I think it was better for my child to have childcare as an only child without a lot of other little kids around. But it is very expensive. It's more than my mortgage payment every month, my childcare is. And thankfully, he didn't go into care until a year into the COVID pandemic, but certainly shutdowns because of COVID have happened.
Oh, yeah.
Staff gets sick. Right now, since July, my childcare center has not been open its full hours because we don't have enough staff to meet ratios. So pickup from July through September was at 4 o'clock. Again, I have a job where I'm able to leave work when I need to leave work to go get my kid. But if I worked a 9 to 5 job, I don't know what I would do for that last hour of care. And we still are only at 4:30 pickup at this point, but the cost hasn't changed. And all of this is topped off by the fact that I feel really yucky that I am able to come to my job that I really enjoy and that I get paid fairly well at because I can leave my kid with somebody who's being paid $10 an hour. And I mean, I just like morally, that's really hard for me to feel okay about, but also I don't know what my other options are. So that's the challenge I'm experiencing. I don't know if anybody else has little kids kind of in the thick of it, or if some of the parents on this call who had kids in years past can commiserate. It's never been easy. I know that.
True, it isn't. And the cost is, I mean, Latah County and the Moscow area is the highest in our region. So compared to even Lewiston, Grangeville, or Pheno, I mean, it's always been on the higher end. And I've often wondered how in the world do parents pay for it? It is, like you said, it's the cost of your mortgage. But it's a lot of people think child care programs are making lots of money because of all of that, but it's not the case because they want very badly to pay their staff a really great wage as well, and even more so now than in the past. Any other challenges anybody's had? Okay. All right. One second, I just have to look at my notes. I will just say, programs are doing so many great things for children, families, their communities. Right now, I mean, they always have. They work very, very hard. Owning, operating, directing, and or teaching in an early childhood program has always been a challenge as well. But the past couple of years have been more different than for programs or staff that I've ever seen or experienced in the amount of time that I've been here. Many times I feel like I'm a counselor to them a lot, and we're just here to listen and try to see what we can do to support them in any way that we can. But their experiences challenges like never before. And we seem to talk about it with each one of them every time we either meet in person or on the phone. It's something that's going on that's they're having a struggle with. These are just some of the challenges that I know programs are expensive, or are experiencing, and the need for childcare. You'll see a lot of what you just explained is going on. And I had a program just say, obviously the need for care is at the top of the list. And that they get angry parents regularly, that when we don't have availability, parents are getting very frustrated with that. And many of our childcare programs have actually chosen to be, programs can have a choice to be on our childcare referral database, whether our resource specialist provides a referral for them and questions to ask and warning signs, or they can go online. I just know in the last year or two, many of our programs have said, I don't want to be on the referral database right now. I can't accept any more children because I don't have enough staff, or I am getting so many phone calls from families that are looking for care that they're like, I feel horrible that I have to say no, and I don't know what else to do for them. And hence, then they're getting angry with programs when they're calling because they've kind of run out of choices, and it's really sad. One of the programs said we hear from parents often who are in desperation due to recent closures or other programs shortening their hours, just like what you were just saying, Dulcie. That they have to do what works for them, just like any other business that's not been able to be open. Yes, childcare programs are very much needed and needed for all of us to be able to work, but they have to have the staff too, just like everybody else. Having staffing challenges, and it's a huge challenge, mainly due to the rate of pay. So you were just talking about that. I think you hit on everything. But
I've been pretty mad, Darla.
I mean, my youngest is 25, so I haven't had to experience this for a long time, but I can't fathom it, and trying to figure out all the answers is very, very difficult. We don't all have all the answers for it. But as far like staffing challenges, many of them want to provide their staff with a lot more wages and they know that they deserve it, or they can go to McDonald's and make more than what they can in the early childhood field. And so many people have jumped and just said, I can't do this anymore. I need more money to pay my rent or anything else that they have. And they'll jump to McDonald's or Starbucks or wherever and get paid a fair amount of money anymore. So that's why programs have, tried increasing their wages for their staff, but hence that ends up falling on the families as well.
So Darla, just since we're sort of on the topic, there's a question in the chat about whether there are statewide or nationwide efforts to try to attract people into the industry, to attract early childhood educators, caregivers?
I will address that. Yes, there are. I will address that in a few more slides when we talk about some of the things that we are helping to do. But I'm also just thinking, even working with, I'm on the committee for the LCSC advisory committee for the early childhood program. And they are always talking about what they're doing to getting more students to then come to school and be in this field and how important that is. So it's definitely out there. It's a lot. People that are in the early childhood field are typically ones that care. They're doing it not necessarily for the money. It's just what they get out of being with children and families. And we typically know we're going into a profession that is not at the top of the list for pay. And that is really sad. Just gonna kind of go back to my list here as far as they're doing a lot of things they can to retain staff and figure out they can offer benefits, higher pay, just appreciation and support. I'm seeing a lot of that when I go into programs that have snacks out for their staff in their staff room or anything like that. And typically that's coming from the director or owner that are purchasing those types of things. Increasing costs, we just talked about that. Everything has increased. And so we're all experiencing it, even if we don't have children in care, but the cost of so many things have gone up that it's a challenge.
Dulcie, there's another question in the chat from Dawn. Dulcie, you're muted.
Thank you. Are there any programs in our region that have staff trained in the special needs of children who might be on the autism spectrum or have a neurodivergence of some sort?
There are no like set requirements for those type of trainings. There is one program in Moscow. It's called it's called Lotus, that specifically accepts children with any of those types of behaviors and things going on. So I know their staff are trained differently than many others. But Idaho Stars, we have so many staff or so many trainings available that if that was a need, if a parent were to talk to that program to say, okay, what would help support them? There's a lot of our trainings that could be on autism and a huge variety to help provide inclusive care.
Thank you. I also just wanted to say, I put it in the chat if folks didn't see, but I'm sure you're familiar with the white paper that the state put out, Darla, earlier this year when the Childcare Expansion Grant Program was launched. But in their own research identifies that in Latah County, we are lacking 290 childcare spots. Our gap is about 23%. So we could have programs offering 290 more spots for under 5-year-olds, and we would only then be meeting our current need.
It does make, I mean, those are kind of scary statistics, and it makes you wonder, where are all these children going? Is it that families are just not able to work and stay home? Are they doing care, kind of helping support family, friends, and neighbors? We know there's a lot of child care programs that are not on our database and are out there. We want to be able to support them all with as many things as we can, but those are staggering numbers. One program had told me this, all of the admin duties that get so overwhelming that they are, paperwork and processes and all the things, and when you're short staffed, those are the first things that go. Almost all directors that I'm working with are also in classrooms. They're being the cook, they're being the janitor, they're in and doing everything. because they absolutely have to. They don't have the staff to do it. And staff burnout as well. And that's happening a lot through the whole pandemic. Childcare programs are considered essential workers. Families can't go to work without them. They weren't able to do online schooling and things like that compared to, you know, the regular school system. And it's been a lot. I know they share that with me a lot, and some have left just because they're like, I'm ready to do something else. And also, a lot is lack of understanding from families, community members of the importance of everything that they do. So as much as we can do to show them appreciation, really understand that childcare is way more than a babysitting service. They're providing education on a daily basis to the children that they are serving. And that's how we're raising, you know, good citizens in our world to move forward, is by everything that they do. Anything else that you guys can think about? Or questions on that?
I just think, to me, one of the really unique challenges, I mean, so many industries are facing issues with staffing and with pay and with inflation. And like the unique bind to me of childcare is the ratio portion, which as a parent, I'm very glad for, to know that my kid is only one of, you know, per teacher, he's only one of 3 or 4, and that's great for his learning. But it also means that like, you can't just say everybody's going to have to pitch in a little bit more. We're going to have to operate the cook line with 2 people rather than 4 people. You just like legally cannot operate in that manner. And also it was part of the reason I personally was very frustrated when the city's proposal to address childcare, when Moscow went with rewriting its code earlier this year, was, you know, we're hearing from childcare providers they can't get enough staff. So our solution is to just change the ratios. That was like the only thing they could think of. And that was really aggravating, and to me demonstrated a lack of understanding of the uniqueness of the industry, and sort of an unwillingness to think more creatively than like, well, let's just lower our standards.
And I hear you with all of that, Dulcie. We were part of some of those committees in figuring out with the city of what they should do. And it came about from specifically a couple of programs that really wanted the ratios to be less. And most everybody else, every program that I've talked to, they're like, we don't care what the city does as far as ratios. We're going to maintain the same ratios that we always have, and we're not going to go backwards. And it's not safe for children and staff, which I totally get and I support, because I mean, you're struggling with wanting good ratios, but it necessarily is not going to get more staff by lowering the standards, because it's just providers are not out there. Many programs have rooms that they have vacant and no children in because they don't have the staff. So I'm not sure what the answer is for getting more staff all of the time. I wish I had all the answers, but I don't. I'm just gonna check in, any certain other childcare challenges that you have had or heard others having in the community. You'll see you've shared a lot of them that you have had.
So I think Lauren just dropped another question in the chat that maybe you can address, Darla, which is how much of a role can volunteers play in helping out in childcare programs? Are volunteers allowed? Should we be recruiting seniors, for example, to spend a few hours a week with children? It could be good training for new grandparents.
Absolutely. And those, some of the, I have in a couple of slides, just some of those ideas of now what can we do? And that was volunteering. If you or you know somebody that has the ability to volunteer, I would highly encourage you to contact a program and see what they need. Do they need somebody to come in and, you know, fix some of their materials that are broken, or mend books, or rock babies, or read a book like you were just mentioning. And then they would, depending on the amount of time that they're there, they would talk with the director or owner of whether they would have to go through the background checks and things like that with the city. But any of those things are fabulous ideas. And we'll talk about some more in just a bit, but you have the ability to go do that. I know, I'm sure they would appreciate it.
So the question that you had on the slide there, Darla, like what other challenges have you heard? And I know this because I'm in the trenches right now, and I'm on all the mommy Facebook groups in the area. And I know that we just had a fairly sizable daycare provider close in Moscow, like in a pretty short runway. Families found out they were no longer going to have daily care for their child. And it's really concerning that this is happening, and then it just puts more pressure on the current providers who may have spots or who just have to keep growing their wait lists. I don't know if you can speak to, if you know how many providers Moscow has lost or Latah County's lost over the last 2 years.
I have not looked up that data. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. There's been a few, not a horrible large amount, I'm sure, compared to many areas. But I'm trying to think off the top of my head, okay, which all ones have left in a certain period of time, and many of it is due to costs and shortage of staff and burnout, just to say, I'm gonna go along and do something else at this time. But I certainly can look that up and find information if that's something somebody would like, that data. So I'm just gonna go to a slide of some things that I know are being done. A lot through Idaho Stars, the state in general. And we're really trying to work and help support programs with site visits, how to make their jobs easier by training, education, setting goals, being there for them to work through as many issues as we can. And also increasing qualified workforce through increasing their education and training. We work through their policies and rates and wages to support their businesses. So with that, I know the Department of Health and Welfare has had money through ARPA, which is American Rescue Plan, that has been supporting providers a lot in the last 2.5 years. They've had grant money that programs can apply for, that they will end up getting a monthly payment from Department of Health and Welfare to help support their business expenses, their staff wages, help and pay their rent, cleaning that they've never had to do before. They can be used for a huge variety of things, as well as a wage enhancement grant that Department of Health and Welfare has right now, and that is to help support and keep people working in the early childhood field as much as we can. But we already know that by next spring, early summer, somewhere around there, those funds are going to be depleted, and Health and Welfare already knows they're not going to get more funding from that. We know that's going to be very impactful to our programs and their staff. Health and Welfare has known it all along that it could be. We wanted to be able to support programs throughout this whole process and keeping open. But we have a lot of concerns of what's going to happen with our providers when that is gone. So we're working with them a lot now on how to change their policies. Do they need to look at their rates? Many programs have not even raised their rates because they've been getting some of this funding. So when you're talking about rates being really high, they could go up. It's hard to tell what each program is gonna do. Many of them have said, I'll be fine. I've got it all figured out and I know I'll be okay. And others have told me I'm gonna struggle. So we're trying to help them with that process. And also, once the wage enhancement grant money goes away, are there ways that they are able to still support and give their staff raises to help maintain them? That all part is going to be very interesting. Idaho Stars, we have a lot of grants available to programs. We call them Successful Start grants. We have quality improvement grants, accreditation grants. A big thing in the last year or two that Health and Welfare pushed for is programs having safe sleep in good practices in safe sleep. So providers could apply for safe sleep grant funding to get new cots, cribs, evacuation cribs, sleep sacks, all of those types of things. So that's been a wonderful way to help support our providers. We also have going on right now what we're calling our business cohorts. We have business cohorts, nutrition cohorts, nutrition active play cohorts, as well as CDA. And those that are going through the business cohort, it's like pretty much like September through December that they're going through training and education about running their business and things to improve and budgets and marketing and everything. And then they get grant funding at the end to actually put towards supporting that within their program. You might need a new computer or a desk or those types of things. And the nutrition active play cohorts, very similar in the time frame that programs can apply to go through the cohorts and learn a lot about nutrition and active play and things to really improve in their programs and get grant funding as well. And then in general, we have training and education scholarships. When my phone rings, it just comes right through. Really trying to improve the workforce in our state. So educating providers with getting their child development credential or AA or bachelor's in early childhood, elementary ed, any of those types of things, that has been very successful in helping staff, as well as all of what we do as far as our site visits, coaching, supporting them when we're out in programs, and as well as the child care referrals and family education. Our resource specialists are very busy helping those frustrated parents, trying to figure out what is available in their area, educating them on what questions to ask, and also can do what we call enhanced referrals, that when a family needs something that they're not able to find, they will actually call child care programs throughout the area that might meet their needs and see if they actually have openings for them. On this slide, I'm just what's happening in your community that you know about that's supporting programs, or what can you as an individual or organization can do. And one thing that sounds like when Lauren had asked about volunteers, how can we support early childhood programs? I would encourage people to share and support any of their fundraising efforts. Many of our programs do a lot of different fundraising, whether it's at a coffee shop or a variety of ways that they're trying to earn funding for a particular thing in their program. Sharing their job announcements, as you see any of them meeting staff, which is you can also share that and let people know, hey, I know, I've heard about this place that is hiring volunteering. I think that's huge as far as the things that we had mentioned earlier. Refer them to Idaho Stars so we can help them, give them support in opening up a business, being part of our database. You know, of somebody that you think, hey, they're thinking about starting care or really would be good at that, have them call us and we'd be happy to help them with that process. Can you guys think of anything else that's particularly going on in your community?
You know, being a group like the League of Women Voters, I think we tend to also think about the ways that we could help with policy. And I'm certainly very interested in how do we let our policymakers know that this is a problem. And it's not just a problem for people with young children, it's a problem for our whole community. If there's not safe, affordable places for children to go while their parents work, then the economy suffers because of it. And it's really valuable. So I think making it an issue that cannot just be brushed aside by our policymakers as a special interest, but that it's pretty fundamental to a functioning community. I certainly complain every time I see a elected official.
I mean, that's where we kind of have to start, you know, or writing letters to our senators or going to those meetings and discussing it to figure out what you want them to support, what you want them to do. It's huge. And childcare is not going away. It's needed forever and always. And how can we make it the best that we can for children and families? And the staff and people working there as well. They don't want to be, you know, not have much staff and have so much to do that they can't provide the care that they truly want to. I think we all know this, that children are our future. Anything we can do to support families and children and their programs that serve them, help children to be active, responsible, and educated citizens in our community as they grow older. Any other suggestions are always welcome. I encourage people to go to the Idaho Stars website. On there is a workforce report for the whole entire state, but as well as each individual region. That's something that might be helpful for you to have a lot of data. I didn't have much time to kind of pull any of that up today, but also an annual report through Idaho Stars, and everything that we are doing is done each year. And the 2022, we actually just got, it's online as well, but we also just got mailed some. And if you guys actually want any of these, I'd be happy to get them to you. I come up to Moscow quite often, and I'd be happy to drop any of them off if you would be interested in having those. But that report is also on the Idaho Stars website as well. What questions does anybody else have?
I have a comment. I think now is a good time to write or to call our legislators about additional and ongoing support for early childhood programs, since we have a huge budget surplus in Idaho, and they're figuring out how to allocate those funds. And so I think a strong call for support for early childhood programs is well warranted.
I totally agree, Lauren.
Darla, from your vantage point, are there any states that you feel like they've figured something out, that they've got a program that's really supporting their childcare providers? I mean, from what I gather, this is not an Idaho unique crisis. Childcare is in crisis everywhere. But I don't know if there's any specific programs in other parts of the country that you have, that you're aware of that provide some models that we might be able to speak with our decision makers about to say, this is something we could try.
I personally am not aware at something that in my position, I don't keep track of as much because of all the things that I have to do, but I'm certainly happy to talk to our admin to see what they're hearing from when they go to conferences or work with the legislators, and they're helping with a lot of that and learning more about from what other states are doing. Any other questions or comments?
We have about 6 more minutes for discussion. So just wanted to let you know that.
And Lauren and Dave, I don't know if you remember me from working at the University of Idaho Children's Center.
Oh, that's how you recognize that.
It is how I recognized
Aha, all right. It was
Child
so long ago.
that time.
That was a very good program.
Yeah,
Probably still is. We have track.
as I was a work study student at the U of I Children's Center many years ago.
Oh,
And
wow.
then working there as the lead infant and toddler teacher.
Fantastic. Comes back around.
I know, yeah.
We sure appreciated and still appreciate that program.
Yes.
I think our daughter really benefited from that.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great programs out there. They're doing the best that they can right now, that's for sure.
Okay. Well, Dulcie and Darla, if there are no more questions or comments, maybe we should just end the program now. And thank you so much, Darla, for a wonderful and
Thank you, Darla.
informative program. Thanks
Thanks for all you do in our region.
You and happy to help. And if you guys have any more thoughts, please reach out to me.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right.
So before we end, I just want to announce next week's program. So this was the last of our programs that we're doing on Zoom for this fall. Next week's program will be in person at the 1912 Center. And our speaker is Purismita Bora, and she'll be talking about political communication and misinformation. What do we know and what can we do? And obviously, this is a very, very important topic for us all. Let me just read the description. In the current political environment of hyper-partisanship and high-tech communications, how does misinformation spread? What are some of the consequences of misinformation? Why do people believe in misinformation? And what can we do to combat misinformation? So this is going to be a really important topic for us all, especially with the election coming up. So thank you all for being here. We really appreciate all of you. And Dawn is going to host next week's meeting. So I'll stop the recording now.